Welcome to a brand new day of free-to-play here on Magic the Gathering Arena. Get the dish on the latest with me, Lord Rumfish. Today I'm talking about white and red as a draft archetype in March of the Machine. So the primary presented red-white archetype is aggro with backup creatures. Mirror Shield Hoplite is the primary signpost uncommon of this. It's a 2/2 vigilance for a red and a white. And whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a backup ability, you copy the ability. You can choose new targets for the copy, only triggers once per turn. So all of your backup creatures, it's not just doubling the counters, but it also gives away the ability to two other creatures potentially. So you could give, two things Menace, or two things First Strike, or Double Strike, things like that. And between those keyword abilities and the counters piling onto your board, the thing that's really good about this card is that it doesn't cost any extra investment of mana, anything like that. It just, once per turn, double the triggers. From what I've seen, most of the backup creatures are pretty fair deals, pretty much on rate. If they had put the counter on themselves instead, pretty reasonable cards. Getting this extra value out of all of them is going to, push it up over the edge. I think it'll be a fine aggressive archetype. Let's go ahead and look at the battle in red-white. Okay, we've got Invasion of Kylum here. It's a white, a red, and two colorless. It has 5 defense. And when it ETBs, up to 2 target creatures each get +2/+0 and gain vigilance and haste until end of turn. So it's at sorcery speed, but it's a very aggressive play. And if you have creatures that the opponent doesn't want to trade with, or they have trouble blocking, maybe they got First Strike, Menace, things like that, you might be able to get in and flip this over. And if you flip it over, it's a sorcery that gives you a pair of 3/2s. And the 3/2s, whenever it attacks with another token creature, such as, the other 3/2, then that gets a +1/+1 counter. So it puts 6 power onto the board when you flip it over, and if they attack together, that's 8 power. This one is a fine aggressive card. It doesn't specifically play into the backup theme, but as long as you have a decent board presence by the time you get to 4 mana, then I think you've got good odds of either flipping this battle or forcing the opponent into some awkward trades in combat with your 1-drops and token creatures and things. Redcap Heel Slasher, this is a common first striker. It works on defense, which I find very interesting. They like to do offensive first strike a lot now, where it only works on your turn or if the creature is attacking. But, this could be a 3/4 first striker. It can also be, a 2/3 first striker, which is fine, that gave away a counter and gives something else first strike to get in with. Karsus Depth Guard is sneakily one of the payoff cards for running the backup aggro. There are other ways to pump his power. There's some decent equipment running around the set, but Karsus Depth Guard, if you back up and put a counter onto him, then he'll be able to attack. And as a 5/4, with maybe a temporary keyword ability or something, he'll be a very good attacker. So Karsus Depth Guard, you can't run too many without some payoffs, but this is one of the key cards, I would say, of this archetype. Fearless Scald, this is a very dangerous backup creature. It's a 3/2 double striker, red and 4 colorless. It has backup 1. So, it could be a 4/3 double striker for 5 mana. Or it can come down as a 3/2 double striker, give something else a counter and double strike and get in. This one seems particularly scary with the Hoplite. Or if you if you get this thing down, it puts a couple of counters and double strike out and you swing in. That seems like an incredible, aggressive, like tempo move. Something the opponent's going to have trouble blocking and coming back from. Also, if you get first strikers and double strikers onto the field, it works defensively as well. You can lock up and stall the ground, because if you have enough power of first strike, and double strike also deals damage in the first strike step, then you can first strike something of the opponent's dead before it ever gets a chance to deal its combat damage. Sigiled Sentinel's kind of a bread and butter card for the backup aggro deck. It could be a 3/3 Vigilance on its own, which is fine. But if you can double up the counters, give other things Vigilance, then you get a really good attack and the opponent's not able to crack back at you. Kithkin Billy Rider, here's another double striker, right? So if you get enough of these first strikers and double strikers, again, it works very well on defense. Offensively, it's nice to put counters on this creature. All of your counters, it's sort of like they're dealing double work on a double striker. It's just kind of a nice payoff to have. Golden Scale Aeronaut, I doubt you're going to have to fight other people very much over this common. It can be a 3/4 flying creature for 5, which is fair but not exciting. It can also give away a counter, jump something else for a turn, so it can fly a little bit. This is really going to do its best work in a deck that really wants the backup. Like if you got the Mirror Shield Hoplite, if you got Karsus Depth Guard, things like that. Then at that point, this goes from being a fair card into something that really works with the synergies of your deck, and you're pretty happy to run a couple copies up at the 5-drop. Enduring Bond Warden might be decent in the archetype. So it's not much to write home about. It can be a 1/2 for 1 white mana, and when it dies, you can put its counters on something else. But it's neat if it comes down a little bit later, right? Like if you had the Hoplite out, you played the Enduring Bond Warden, it gives away 2 counters. You get in with those creatures. If those creatures die in combat, the counters that were on them funnel back over to something else. They could come back to the Bond Warden, and then when the Bond Warden dies, it could funnel over to something else again. It's a neat way to be able to start shuffling around +1 counters in your deck. Green-white is probably going to like the Bond Warden and some of the backup cards as well. They might poach a few from you. I think this is okay here. You want to get started with getting bodies on the board pretty early in the game, and more backup is just kind of beneficial. So if you're able to shuffle the counters around, that'll be a nice boon. You also get access to Quinde, Pride of Femerif. He's a 2/2 double striker for 4, also happens to be a knight. And creatures you control with first strike have double strike. So there aren't a whole lot of common, uncommon creatures that just have first strike printed on them. The Redcap Heel Slasher works very well with Quinde. He makes all of those gain double strike. But it crops up in other places. And for example, Quinde, when that Redcap Heel Slasher comes down and gives away 1 or 2 counters, Quinde will make those things have double strike for the turn that they have first strike. There's some also things at upper rarities that have first strike as well. It's just something to look out for. And a lot of first strike and double strike works nicely on defense. He's not statted very aggressively, but a double striker is always dangerous. And if you start putting counters onto a double striker, again, you get like kind of twice as much value out of them. Just backing up Quinde once is going to make him come in for 6, not counting whatever other abilities you may have given him. So that kind of feels like the core of the baseline red-white deck. But what if I told you there were not 1, but 2 other functional archetypes in red-white that you could draft? Let's take a look. So speaking of double strike, let's take a look at the red-white equipment deck. That's right, equipment. We've got a Rayav Master Smith. It's red and a white, 2/2. Whenever a creature you control that's enchanted or equipped attacks, that creature gains double strike until end of turn. This is obviously a strong payoff for equipment. And as it happens, there's a number of decently good playable equipment that looks like go very late in the draft at the moment. You should be able to pick up the equipment that you want to your heart's content, just about. But one card by itself, just one signpost uncommon might not be able to make the whole archetype tick. But there's another card on the bonus sheet. Valduk, Keeper of the Flame. 3/2 for a red and 2 colorless. At the beginning of combat on your turn, for each aura and equipment attached to Valduk, create a 3/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. So, Rayav gives you, a kind of a go wide, equip and enchant a bunch of things on your team. They all gain double strike. Valduk wants you to build a Voltron on him, where he's just carrying, every piece of equipment you can find. This works for auras too. I haven't seen as many auras in the set that really speak to me in the same way that the equipment does. The equipment's very aggressively costed and quite good. And at the very least, Rayav would give Valduk double strike when he comes in with all of his elementals. The elemental tokens exile at the beginning of the next end step. They have trample and haste. They're 3/1s. So these two cards together make the signpost uncommons for the equipment deck. Now you might be asking, is there actually equipment that's worth your time in white-red? Here in white, we've got Core Halberd. It's 1 white mana, common, equips for 1 colorless. The equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has vigilance. So other than costing 1 white instead of 1 colorless, this is better than Alien and Scimitar. This is a very serviceable piece of equipment. +1/+1 for 1 mana is already a really nice boost in a limited deck. It's very easy to move it around. Vigilance, I think, really takes this over to the top, where it's a very nice, very valuable piece of equipment in your deck. Something that you would not be the least bit embarrassed to run, even if you didn't have any payoff cards. At least like 1 copy. But with Rayav getting +1/+1, vigilance, and double strike, that sounds really nice. Or with Valduk, you get +1/+1, vigilance, and a free elemental token every turn. Pretty good. Alright, red is chock full of good equipment here. We've got Beamtown Beatstick. It's 1 red. It's common. Equips for 2, so not too pricey. The equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has menace, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player or battle, you make a treasure token. This is a good, solid, aggressive piece of equipment here. And, I like this on Valduk, because giving him menace, he doesn't have that much toughness, but giving him menace means he might be able to get in when he otherwise wouldn't. And if he's got menace and double strike, then obviously a menace double strike creature is really hard to block effectively. Mirren Banesplitter has flash. It's 1 red. It's a common. When it ETBs, it attaches right away to a creature you control, so it gives +2/+0. So the first time you cast it, it's at instant speed and gives +2 power. It's like a combat trick. Later, you can equip it for 3 colorless, and +2 power is a very significant boost. And I think the 3 mana equip is worth it in this case, because the first time it came in at flash speed and didn't cost anything to equip. So considering how good it is initially, I'm willing to also pay the 3 mana later for the +2 power boost. It is definitely a significant impact on the board. with Double Strike, yeah, this is scary. Finally, we've got Ramosian Greatsword here. This works better if you can convoke it out. It's very pricey otherwise. It's red and 4 colorless, uncommon, has convoke. The equipped creature gets +3/+1 and has trample. It equips for 2. So you can probably pick this up pretty late. I doubt very many people are going to be excited to pick this up in draft. But this one works particularly well with Rayav. Getting +3/+1, trample, and double strike. Right? A double striking trampler is just ridiculous. That's just a game-ending threat, no matter what you stick this on. And at that point, the other creatures that you populate the deck with doesn't matter that much. You could run cards like Ral's Reinforcements just to get more bodies on the field so you have more things to equip. So yeah, this is a neat archetype that its signpost uncommons come from the bonus sheet, but it's enough that I think you can build a whole deck around it. And it really doesn't need the same cards as the backup deck does. So you're kind of free to take whatever you want. But didn't I say there were 2 bonus archetypes in white-red? How could there possibly be support for a 3rd archetype that's neither of the first 2 things? Well, I'd like you to meet my friend Zada Hedron Grinder. This is a 3/3 for 4. It's an uncommon, Goblin Ally. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Zada, so just write one target, just one target, copy that spell for each other creature you control the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures. So, Zada is just a beast with a number of different cards that exist in this format. I'm going to start by explaining the red-white build, because white has another payoff card. Right? Because Zada by itself, you might say, well, you can't count on finding this one uncommon, but there's another uncommon, and it's in white. That is payoff for a similar strategy. It's not worded exactly the same way, though. Tiller of Flesh is a weird card in this format. It feels like it was meant to be placed here for some kind of a grindy Esper deck that has a whole bunch of creature removal and you keep incubating while you're playing all your removal spells. It's a 2/4 for 4 in white. It's an uncommon Phyrexian Knight. Whenever you cast a spell that targets one or more permanents, incubate 2. This doesn't work the same way as Zada. It doesn't just have to target, like Zada or the Tiller of Flesh. It can target multiple things, and you'll still incubate 2. Tiller of Flesh and Zada do not combo off, per se, right? Tiller of Flesh cares about when you cast a spell, Zada makes copies of spells. So you're not going to incubate, 10 times or anything like that. But Tiller of Flesh will give you payoffs for running some of the same types of cards that you would have been running with Zada. Tiller of Flesh can also pay you off for cards that Zada would not have, like auras, for example. Or spells that target multiple things, like a green fight spell. Right, that targets your creature, it also targets the opponent's creature. Tiller of Flesh would still give you an incubate in that case, where Zada would not. But the 2 of them play well together in the same deck. If you have spells that Zada cares about, Tiller of Flesh is going to be incubating for you in the meantime. So these are your signpost uncommons for the red-white Targeting Matters deck. So what are the spells that you use in the Targeting Matters deck? I'm going to start with red-white first. Then for bonus here, we're going to talk about going into 3 colors with green. Make like a Cabaretti deck. That's Targeting Matters, but we're going to start with white-red first. Scroll Shift. Scroll Shift, 3-mana instant in white. Exile up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment you control. Return it to the battlefield, draw a card. So Scroll Shift with Zada can blink your entire board, by all of the creatures you control, return them right back to the battlefield, and then you'll draw cards equal to the number of creatures you control. So you could, for example, make bad blocks with your entire board, chump block everything the opponent's attacking with, Scroll Shift Zada, blink them all out, they all come back, you get ETB triggers, all triggering again at that point, and you draw a whole bunch of cards. That's ridiculous. Zada just enables some ridiculous things to happen. Let's keep going. Angelic Intervention's a pretty good one. White and a colorless, instant. Target creature or planeswalker gains protection from colorless or from the color of your choice until end of turn. If it's a creature, it gets a +1 counter. So if you target Zada with this, then all of your creatures are going to gain protection from something and get a +1 counter on them. That could really blow out the opponent's combat step. It could also maybe swing you in for lethal, because protection from a color means creatures of that color can't block. If you're the one on defense, then it means that creatures of that color aren't going to deal any damage to your things with protection. It just plays very nicely with Zada. Aerial Boost is not bad either. 1 white, 1 colorless, Convoke, it's common. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains flying until end of turn. I mean, you could do this on defense if you needed to, if you were in a bind. Make your whole board +2/+2 and flying, but clearly what you want to be doing with this is, you jump like 4 or 5 creatures with Zada, or even just 3, whatever. Give them all +2/+2 and flying, you just swing over and end the game that turn. Burning Sun's Fury is not quite as good. It plays fine with the Tiller of Flesh. If you're using Zada, then you need to just target Zada. It says up to 2 target creatures. That means you just choose Zada. You don't pick 2 things. And then Zada will copy this, targeting all your other creatures. It's for +2/+0 and haste. I think the white tricks are more powerful in combination with Zada. But it's still something you can play in your deck, and the Tiller of Flesh will like this trick just fine. Coming in Hot's not the worst with Zada. 1 red, instant, common, target creature gets +1/+0, gains first strike until end of turn, scry 1. So you could give your entire board +1 power boost, give everything first strike, which is incredible on defense. Not bad on offense either. And you get a whole bunch of scry 1 triggers. It's not as good as if you'd gotten like a scry 4 or 5 on its own, but if the first several cards you look at are not something you want to see, then you might be able to get a lot of value out of the scries. Alright, special bonus, we are into our Cabaretti colors, or for you folks who played in a Lara block, that'd be like Naya. So we're going to look at green here as a potential pairing with Zada. Zada plays very well with a few of these green spells, not the fight spells, but Zada does incredibly well with some of the green spells here. Arachnoid Adaptation's alright. 1 green, instant, common, target creature gets +2/+2 and gains reach, untap it. So obviously this is a complete blowout, right? If you're able to swing out into the opponent's board, they think they've got a free attack against you. They come in, you untap everything with +2/+2 and reach. Yeah, that's probably game. You probably kill all of their attacking creatures, and wouldn't be the worst on offense either. And you can, after you've attacked with everything, then you can use the adaptation and untap them all. So it's kind of like it gives them vigilance as well in that regard. It's just it's a nice one, but it's not the best one. There's some exciting stuff to look at in green here. I want to let you all know that I think I was mistaken in an earlier video about Fertilid's Favor and Zada. Fertilid's Favor says target player, and then targets a creature. So I think that target player actually is going to shut this one off from being useful with Zada. It would still play just fine with the Tiller of Flesh, though. Vengeant Earth. So if you target Zada with this, it's just going to pump it up to a 4/4, right? It's a power toughness setter. But then it's going to target all of your other creatures, make them 4/4s. They all gain haste, and they all must be blocked this turn if able. Every single one of your creatures will be a 4/4 that must be blocked. And that could be devastating to the opponent's board. Just all 4/4s all have to block. If you've gone wider than the opponent, then this is going to be crushing because they're definitely going to have to make some bad blocks when you come in with this, in combination with Zada. Works okay on defense, but on offense, this could be like a crazy removal spell, sometimes a little bit like a one-sided Wrath. And now the piece de resistance, Storm the Seed Core. 4 mana sorcery, it's double green pips, so it doesn't splash as easily. Uncommon. You distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among up to 4 target creatures you control. It says up to, so you just target 1. You target Zada. You put 4 +1/+1 counters on Zada. Creatures you control gain Vigilance and Trample until end of turn. When you cast the Storm the Seed Core in this way, targeting only Zada with the 4 +1 counters, Zada is going to copy this spell for every other creature you control. So Storm the Seed Core suddenly becomes put 4 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Creatures gain Vigilance and Trample until end of turn. And boy, if that doesn't end the game, I don't know what will. That's so Storm the Seed Core would be a really strong pull for Zada towards green. But still, a lot of really neat tricks are in white, and Tiller of Flesh is in white. That also kind of pulls you into the targeting archetype. So this is a 2 or 3 color deck that I've described. But yeah, there you go. There are 3 archetypes for white-red. There's backup aggro, there's equipment, and there's targeting matters. If you have learned anything or just gained some enjoyment from my video today, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do the things. And until next time, stay cool.